recording. Oh, Rebecca just joined us. Hi, Rebecca. And let's see here. So I am going to go ahead and jump into the class now. Hopefully everybody's ready with their notebook and their paper, or their notebook and their papers. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. Their notebook, their water, pencil, pen, and otherwise, hold your questions. If you have some, feel free to use the chat option on the Zoom box at the bottom of the screen. And, you can use it either to maybe remember your question or to ask Vanessa, and she'll bring it up at the end of class if we have time for questions. Everybody ready? All right, share screen. And here we go. There we are. Come on, work. And I just have to do this real quick. There we go. All right, let's get started. All right, so we are on week 4. Yay, 4 weeks in. We are going to cover part 1 of levels of abilities and the structure. So I did develop a structure that kind of goes along with this over the years of working with people. Excuse me. Recognizing abilities. So we're going to start in on actually like working on your unique abilities. Throughout the course, I'll be teaching and showing you ways to recognize your unique abilities. So as we go through here and you recognize things within yourself, it's a good thing to write them down. So even if you don't recognize one of your abilities right away, don't give up. A lot of times these things will grow as you use them. So again, it's kind of like that, talking about exercising the muscle that hasn't been used. It doesn't work so great at first, but the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. So you do want to remember that, try to continue to recognize when something pops up. That's why we have our confidence logs. Okay, so today we're going to start class off with an exercise, and it's called Can You See It? And that's Mickey Mouse. So Mickey Mouse is the example that we're going to use, because who doesn't love Mickey Mouse, right? All right, so basically I want everybody to put their stuff down, and I want you to pick a spot, a blank spot on a wall. Excuse me again. I want you to picture an image of Mickey Mouse on the wall. So go ahead and just pick that spot and try to visualize Mickey Mouse on the wall, okay? Try to see if you can see him clearly. Sometimes it's fun to see if you can make him move. Maybe he's waving at you. Maybe he's winking at you. Maybe he's just smiling. So have him move his arms and his legs now. So while you're projecting that image, go ahead and see if you can have him move. I'll give you a moment for that. I also am going to throw in a twist that's not written in here. I want you to see if you can hear him laugh. Can you see it? All right, for those of you who could accomplish this, congratulations. You're able to see, which is that clairvoyant thing that we spoke about in one of the previous classes. I think that was class 2. And the reason I threw in the little twist with the hearing is because I wanted to see if you could actually hear him. So a lot of times when we're visualizing things, we see the image in our head, but one of the things that I want to teach you throughout the course is to remove the image from your head and try to put it outside of your brain. It's like using your head as a projector, okay? So you want to project that image out onto a wall or out into a room, into a space, so that you can start to really formulate what something looks like without having to have it stuck in your head and trying to read and multitask, because you are multitasking when you're reading. So, but yes, so on your notebook, if you were able to project him onto the wall or out into the space, then I want you to write down that you are clairvoyant. Check that one off the box. And then if you are able to hear him laugh, that means you're clairaudient. Okay. I know that was, like I said, bonus step. So excuse me, seeing and hearing. How do I know if what I'm seeing or hearing is real or if it's just in my head? All right. So sometimes when we're picking up messages from our guides or our spirits from the other side, sometimes those messages can be confusing. It makes it sound like, am I just hearing this in my head? Am I making it up? Or am I actually hearing this? So there are different ways to try to recognize that. Sometimes it can feel like you're daydreaming or imagining, or maybe you're just coming up with your own answers for things. How many of us have thought, I'm crazy, I'm having a conversation with myself in my head? This girl has. So when you are seeing or hearing, a lot of times it starts off in our head. The reason is because it's easier for guides and for people from the other side to give us more like electromagnetic, little electrode shock type signals, instead of putting you in a position where you're literally they're standing in front of you and you're seeing them. Okay. So it's easier for them and it takes them less energy. And so, we're working with energy here. So it's easier for them to use less energy to put the message in our head. But sometimes you can hear that voice as a different tone of voice. And sometimes it comes through more like your own voice in your head. And so a good way to differentiate between those two things is to ask yourself a question. Am I coming up with the answer? Did I come up with the answer? Did I know the answer that I just heard in my head? So say you're just kind of, floating around daydreaming, maybe you're meditating, or maybe you're just cleaning your kitchen, kind of mundane tasks help with this. Sometimes you'll hear little messages that pop in. Those are the kind of messages that's how our guides share things with us. So those are the kind of things that you want to write down in your confidence log, because those are the kind of things that we're tracking. Okay. Example, we will use messages from our guides to kind of go through this. Have you ever found yourself trying to figure out something, and then suddenly the answer pops into your head? So you can see the little bubble in that guy's brain. Again, that is how guides tend to communicate with us. The answer will just go boop, and all of a sudden, you know where your keys are. I use this all the time to try to locate things in my house. So for those of you that misplace your keys, or where did I set my phone down? Oh my gosh, that one's a frequent one for me. I'll sit there and I'll actually ask, where did I set my phone down? And then I listen. And then I listen to that first instinct or the first thing that pops in my head, and I go and I check that area. And 99% of the time, that's exactly where it is. So like it says on here, this is usually how our guides help us out, how our guides helping us out by giving us a message. So have you ever found yourself driving down the road and then suddenly you hear a voice or have an overwhelming feeling that you need to pull over, take another road, or just stop? It isn't usually until afterwards that you realize that you might have been in an accident had you not listened. I mean, how many times have you been like, man, I need to slow down? Or you sit there and you get frustrated because there's some driver in front of you that's going like 40 miles an hour in a 55, and you're like, what is wrong with you? I mean, I'm that person, unfortunately. I have many discussions out loud to the people that are driving in front of me. But a lot of times I take a deep breath and I go, there's a reason that I'm being slowed down. There's a reason that this guy was put in front of me. And a lot of times I'll come up to something, and had that person not been in front of me, either there was a cop at the side of the road. I tend to have a heavy foot, so on the gas pedal. So I was like, ooh, I would have probably gotten a ticket. Or you come up to an accident and you're like, had I been there 30 seconds earlier, that would have been me. So these are just a couple of examples of how messages can be shared with us. It can be confusing because the messages, like I said, usually sound like your own voice in your head. Sometimes they're not, though. Sometimes they're a big blaring, you need to stop, or turn here, or sometimes they're very loud. So don't dismiss those either. But again, a lot of the times they still sound like they're in our head. So we just have to learn how to differentiate between talking to yourself and trying to figure something out and then getting an answer for something. Okay. The structure of abilities. Let's jump into this and see where you land. The diagram shows the ascension of different levels of abilities. So it doesn't make you bad or good or anywhere indifferent if you're down closer to the empathic side or if you're all the way up at the medium side. With the progression of abilities, as you ascend through the levels, you will find that the higher up the structure you will find that the higher up the structure you will go, you will still maintain abilities that precede the level in which you find yourself at. Okay, that was a big mouthful. Basically, what I'm saying is you're not going to lose the empathic stuff because you are more of an intuitive or dreamer. If you're a dreamer, you will still have the empath and the intuitive. If you're a psychic, you will still have empath, intuitive, and dreamer. And if you're a medium, we all have the capabilities to get to the medium level. It's just a matter of waking those senses up, trying them out, working on them, practicing them, and stretching those muscles. So before we get started, I'd like everyone to take just a moment and look at the structure, little pyramid with colorful words, and take a guess at what level you feel that you're currently in. Are you empathic, where you can just kind of like tune in on people? Are you more intuitive, where you get kind of gut instincts on things? Do you have, crazy dreams? Do you feel that you're more psychic, where you get kind of premonitions? And medium, maybe you've seen ghosts. There's a lot of, I will go more into those, but I just want you to kind of take a guess at where you're at right now. And write that down in your confidence log or your notes so that way we can refer back to that later. So now we're going to kind of go through the structure so that you understand what each of these are. This is a part of your foundation because it's not just about where you're at, it's actually where your clients are at too. So you want to be able to, and some people call them sitters. So client/sitter, you want to be able to kind of assess where your person is at that you're working with too, because that helps you to help communicate with them. Day-to-day folks that I call it kind of just exist do not have their door even cracked open. These are people that basically are on autopilot through life. That's why we call these sleepers. They go through life only experiencing their fifth sensory abilities: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and they haven't gone through their awakening. How many of you can associate with this? Or at least used to be able to? I know in my past, I sure tried to be a sleeper. I was not interested in becoming psychic. And not that I wasn't already, I just thought, if I can put this over here, maybe I can ignore it long enough and it won't happen. I really wanted to be a sleeper. Some people say I want to be normal. I'm like, well, what is normal? A sleeper is not normal, especially these days. People are really starting to expand. I love the age of Aquarius. So do you know any other people in your life that are also sleepers? I can tell you a few in my life. My husband, still working on just cracking the door open. Love him, but at least he understands what I do and he's, goes with that. So it's helpful. Okay. So if you have any questions about sleepers, go ahead and, like I said, jot those down or put it in the chat and we'll come back to that at the end of class. So then we have our second level, which is empaths. Have you ever noticed that you have walked into a room, seen someone smiling and knew that they aren't really smiling on the inside? Empaths have the ability to sense and feel the emotions and energies of people, animals, objects. They're empathically tuning in on that energy that either surrounds the person or the animal that they're around. I mean, a lot of empaths are huge animal people. Okay. And so empaths, they tend to align. So empathy aligns with your nervous system. Okay. So remember a while back how I told you that, everybody thinks, that at first people used to think this is just some woo-woo thing that we all just somehow have these mystical powers. Then they started figuring out that a lot of this is actually involved with the brain. A lot of these six senses are tied to how our brain functions and how our receptors work. Well, what everybody's starting to figure out now is that, and this is kind of what I teach my students too, is that your whole body is a receptor. Our whole body is built of a nervous system that actually has little electric signals going everywhere, all the way down to your fingertips and your tippy toes. And so when you are working with empathy, sometimes you literally feel messages come in, not necessarily just up here. Sometimes our guides or the people that we're around when we're picking up that energy, sometimes all of a sudden your chest hurts, or all of a sudden your hand hurts and you look over and somebody's rubbing their hand. I mean, how many of you can associate with that feeling? It's amazing how strong empathy is. And when your heightened skill, your heightened sixth sense includes empathy, or you're an empath, it really, really is amazing how much you can pick up. That's one of the reasons it's kind of one of the baseline ones. As we're building through our abilities, we have to start somewhere. We have a foundation. That's why I've been covering a lot of the stuff that I've been going through. A lot of this stuff, I have you do exercises. And a lot of this is just learning the knowledge, because the knowledge itself is actually a vibration on its own. I was just teaching a student of mine yesterday that when we speak, we are speaking a frequency that somebody else can understand. And this will make a lot more sense as we go through class, but frequencies are how spirit communicates. Frequencies are how guides communicate. We pick up on these, and then like same thing with empaths. You're picking up on an energetic frequency, and sometimes that does not match the face of the person that you're actually looking at. Somebody may be smiling and you're just like, why do I want to hug you and tell you it's going to be okay? So everything has an energetic vibration or frequency. So that's why I am super drawn to antiques. I love antiques. I didn't know why for the longest time, but then I started figuring out it's because I think when somebody really loved something, it still holds that frequency, it holds that vibration. And so that empathic side and that, intuitive side of me is drawn to that piece of furniture because I can feel it. I even had a piece of furniture once that I felt like I was rescuing. I won't go into the whole drawn out story, but let's just say that I walked into someone's house and the smell was not so great, but I had seen this. I was there for a totally different reason. I was looking at a book, and it turns out they had this cabinet, this antique Black Forest German cabinet that was absolutely stunning. And I actually asked them if I could buy it from them because I felt like I had to rescue that cabinet from that situation. And sure enough, I was able to buy it. So sometimes things are meant to be. All right. You know what I'll do? I'll post a picture of that cabinet later so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I love this thing. I even have it in my office. So empaths are able to sense energy that is often not recognizable to the physical eyes or the fifth senses, the ones that we've covered 500 times. We all know what fifth senses are, and have the ability to scan another's psyche to gain a deeper understanding of his or her thoughts and feelings. Sometimes when I sit with people, it's not just about talking to, spirits or talking to their guides. Sometimes I literally just read their energy because they are speaking to me. And that's, we can call that our subconscious. We can call that just our energy signature or vibration. I like to call it a higher self. Sometimes that is what I'll connect with, because what a person is physically saying to me does not match up what their energy is saying. I'll grab some water really quick. All right. Empaths are individuals that can tune in on emotions and the feelings of others. Some empaths can also read the environment that they are in. How many of you have walked into someone's house and wonderful person, but you've walked into their house and all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, that feels thick. I mean, there's even an old saying that says you walk in somewhere and you feel like you could cut the tension with a knife. That's somebody that's empathic. They can walk in and go, whoo, something feels thick in here. That's reading the environment. These feelings that empaths pick up on can be very confusing also. Why am I walking into someone's house? It's this happy, chipper person all the time, and their house feels as thick as mud, because we don't always see what's going on behind the scenes. sometimes it can lead an empath to feel as though they may be bipolar. This is especially true with teenagers. Okay, teenagers are little emotional roller coasters anyways, thanks to hormones. And so sometimes it's hard to tell what's going on with them. But I have talked to many of an empathic teenager that literally parents have come to me going, I think they need help. They might be bipolar. And in turn, they're not actually bipolar. They're just so sensitive to empathic, reading things empathically, and they don't know how to handle it. They literally they're around friends, and they can be around one friend group. And that friend group is, we'll just say goth. I know that's way outdated, but we're going there anyways, because that's where I'm at. And all of a sudden they want to be goth, or out with a bunch of jocks. Next thing you know, they want to play sports. There's nothing wrong with any of these things, but it does actually explain a lot about that saying, you are who you hang out with, especially if you're empathic. So teenagers a lot of times will rotate through friends like air because they're trying to figure out what fits. Highly empathic teenagers will sometimes be very depressed because they are not understanding why 1 minute they're happy and the next minute they're just depressed. This spreads not just from teenagers. This goes all the way through adulthood till we go. Those of us that are empathic, I'm sure you can associate with what I'm talking about. How many of you have either had a child that you've been around or a significant other, and you were in a great mood, you come home and all of a sudden you're like, why do I suddenly feel like I need to sleep? Or why do I suddenly feel like I need to go and cry? And there's no reason for it. And then you find out that your kids had a rough day, or you find out that your husband's super stressed out and that's why you feel anxiety or stress. These are those kind of things that can lead you to think that there's a mental disorder. And now, just as a little disclosure, some people genuinely have mental disorders, and those are things that they need to deal with on a different level. But on our class, for this example, a lot of times people realize that they don't have that. They weren't depressed. Their spouse was. They weren't bipolar. They just they're just generally happy when they're not around a ton of people, and then they get around people and all of a sudden they crash because these people stress them out. Okay. So exercise. Empaths use world's fastest meditation, or just take a few breaths to clear your mind. So I'm a firm believer that everybody in this entire class has got empathy and knows what I'm talking about with being an empath. So go ahead and take a moment, do world's fastest meditation, breathe in, blow out those clouds, go ahead and breathe in that white light, fill up your body, blow out those clouds. Go ahead and do that for a moment till you bring that light all the way down to your tippy toes. And then breathe out all of that stress, that anxiety. I want you to be really clear for this class. So go ahead and take a moment for that. Now, as you've cleared yourself, I want you to think about how you feel. How you feel. I want you to really focus on what are the energies that you have going on? What are the emotions that you are feeling right now? Go ahead and jot those down. I'll even do it. All right. So, like I said, recognize your immediate emotional state. Where are you at this exact moment? Now evaluate if a person or place made you start to feel differently. So I want you to think about how you feel right now, just sitting there by yourself in your space, watching the class. And then I want you to think about how you felt maybe about anybody that you were exposed to today. What did you pick up off of them? Did you feel differently? Did you pick up any emotions? Did you go from being in a great mood when you came into work, and then you met with a client, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this is how I feel after that. And then you come out of that by doing world's fastest meditation, you can clear that out and return to your current state. It also helps you to, clear your mind and calm your body and your energy too. So by recognizing the differences, you'll be able to differentiate your emotions from the feelings that you are empathically connecting with on others. So this is a huge tool that I want you to add to your toolbox. Okay. Recognizing the differences, because I want you to recognize how, I want you to just practice this. Like when we're out of class, practice how you feel, recognizing that. And then what happens when you're exposed to another person, and then see how you feel. And then go ahead and do world's fastest meditation afterwards. And then recognize how you feel again. It's like a first, second, third step. Okay. Because it will help you to start connecting with your emotions. It'll help you start tuning those emotions. This is huge for this class. So, okay. So as empaths, the more you ascend, the more you will begin to feel everything. I say this word 5,000 times a day. Feel, feel, feel. Because when you're working on tuning in, when you're working on connection, it is so important for you to learn how to separate your emotions. So if say you're sitting there with a client and you recognize how you felt before that person even came into your energy range, right? And then all of a sudden this person sits down. The reason it's so important for you to know the difference between your emotions is so that you can tell the emotions that you're empathically picking up off of them. That's part of reading, is actually learning how to know what you're picking up on, okay? The more you ascend, the more you will need to connect with patience and compassion. So there's quite a few of you that have gone through the ascension process, the spiritual awakening and the ascension process. And we're always ascending, we're always growing, we're always learning. So ascension doesn't stop. It just usually goes in like bursts, but the more that you ascend, a lot of times we start losing our patience with people because we're like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you get it? How can you not understand this concept? That's why we have to start looking at people with more compassion and more patience. We need to learn that because you will need to learn to view people that haven't ascended differently. Okay. I compare them to children. It's the easiest way to handle people that clearly have not ascended. I think a lot of people would refer to some of those people as Karens. I think we all know what those are. And so when people, we all have our moments, don't get me wrong. We all have our moments where we lose our patience, forget to have compassion. But I've developed this into a process that I'll teach you in just a second. As a small example, children are not knowledgeable. So this is why I like to compare sleepers. It's basically what they are. They're sleepers. They haven't ascended. They haven't even cracked that door open. I like to compare them to children because they're not knowledgeable. So as we go through this class, you're going to gain knowledge and gain knowledge and gain knowledge. And even after this class, you'll go out because the more you ascend, you become like this human sponge for knowledge. You want to just suck it all up, right? But the people that aren't there yet, you need to learn to have patience with. Children are not knowledgeable to understand the mistakes that they are making. So we patiently and compassionately make allowances for them. After all, we're all connected. So if you think of a child, say you think of a 5-year-old and they spout off with something like, I don't like you, or they say something mean, you would look at them and go, oh, that's so cute. You're so little. You don't even know what you just said. You're just a child. Okay, so just because somebody's, 60 years old and, you would think that they would have had enough life experience to know that saying mean things is not appropriate. Some people just aren't there. Maybe they're young souls and they really are still children. And so we have to be able to have some compassion for those people. We need to be able to look at them and go, I'm going to make an allowance for you because you just don't know any better. you're not there yet. And so, because, and part of this is for them, and but most of it is for us. As an empathic person, something like that can sting if it's from somebody, or from somebody that's an age that seems appropriate to not say things like that. Sometimes people are just mean because they really, like I said, they just don't know any better. The more we ascend, the more we open up our heart. So the good news is the more we open up our heart, the more we're able to feel, the more we're able to help people, the more we're able to guide people. The problem with opening up your heart more is that sometimes things can sting a little bit more. So I always tell people, I'm like, if something stings, I call it stingers. It's like a trigger. So I want you to take a moment and actually think about why would this even affect me? What is important about this that I'm needing to get a message? If something stings, it means something's not solved. Something, you have not learned a lesson. You have not evolved from that point, which means that the universe may be pushing the sting so that you can learn. So I take everything as a learning opportunity. We want to be able to embrace things even if they sting, because in this world, there's a yin and a yang for everything. And so sometimes negative events can actually cause a positive trickle effect. Okay. And so if somebody stings you, you can look at them as a child and go, you really don't know any better. And then when you have time, take a moment to maybe evaluate that moment and see why that even stung. Okay. Okay. We're going to go move into 3 C's, but I need water real quick. Okay. I developed something called the 3 C's. For those of you who don't know, my husband had a traumatic brain injury back in 2016. He had frontal lobe damage. And so he had to relearn a lot of things. They thought he was going to be detrimentally damaged from the brain injury that he had. He had 11 compound skull fractures and 5 brain hemorrhages, but he did end up with permanent damage in his frontal lobe. So I started working with my own husband to help him reconnect with the 3 C's that I'm going to show you. Caring, feeling or showing concern for or kindness to others. So I actually had to retrain him on this. As I was retraining my husband to have him connect with these emotions, because frontal lobe kind of dictates those things, I realized that the brain can rewire if it's trained correctly on even the emotional state. And not just the brain, but the heart. So when you are working on retraining yourself as we go through these classes, there's a lot of rewiring that's going on. That's that exercise, that's that white matter we kind of talked about, and then different connections. So we want to focus as an empath on caring, feeling or showing concern for others, and showing kindness, because just because somebody else may be a child doesn't mean we should respond with a negative response. We should show them that we care and that we're not going to, feed into the negative side. We're going to take the positive out of this. Second C is compassion, the feeling that arises when you are confronted with another's suffering. Boy, as an empath, can you feel that, right? When somebody else is suffering, your heart just goes poof, 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 and you just want to hug them. And we feel motivated to relieve that suffering. Again, the more that after you've gone through a spiritual awakening, you're kind of dealing with your own issues that are arising, your own feelings. But the more that you ascend and the more that you start having that light grow within you, the more you'll find yourself wanting to help others find that light. I was kind of explaining this to a student of mine yesterday, where if you're in a room that's completely pitch black, you can't see a thing, and you take a match and you light a match, one little tiny flame, little itty bitty tiny bit of light, right? Tiny bit can light up a whole space. So that's exactly what these emotions energetically do for yourself and for others. So they heal you and they actually heal others, because that little light, this little light of yours instead of that little light of mine, really helps to mute out that darkness that somebody else has experienced, or that pain. Okay. The third C is consideration, careful thought, deliberation, and or thoughtfulness for other people. Consideration. How do you feel when somebody's considerate to you? And I want to make sure that you guys write these things down too, because the 3 C's is actually a tool that I want you to hold on to, because as you grow through this class, not just go through, but grow through, you'll start finding that these 3 C's are very helpful, and you can teach them to other people. Like I said, I developed this out of taking care of my own husband with a brain injury. And he was the most compassionate, caring, and considerate person I had ever known before the brain injury. Post brain injury, he became very angry and frustrated easily. So by retraining him on this and reminding him, recognize when you need to be caring, recognize when you need to show compassion, recognize when you need to show consideration. It rewired him, and now he's back to that person. So we can rewire ourselves and rewire others. The 3 C's are an important aspect to any connection with people, pets, etc., whether they are alive or on the other side. When I have people that come through from the other side, surprisingly, and not a lot of times, I have to use these same concepts, because people will show up because we'll just random example. Somebody's dad shows up. Maybe they were abusive or neglectful or angry when they were alive. And once they've passed, they've gone through their processing, they come back through and they're just these light beings. And they now they feel so bad for having hurt the child that's in the room. They'll come in, they'll literally tell me, I just want to apologize to this person. The person that may be sitting in front of me may have a very difficult time accepting that apology, or accepting the light that's coming through the other person, or even understanding that person has changed. So by sharing these messages in a considerate way, in a kind way, anytime that you work with a client, you should actually be using the 3 C's throughout your session, because nobody's going to be sitting in front of you unless they're there because something's either amiss, they've got questions about life, they've got questions about a loved one that maybe they didn't get closure for. So we need to implement these 3 C's within our sessions ourselves too. And there we go. In a second. Okay. So go ahead and write down if you have any questions about the empathic side of things, or put them in the chat box. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the 3rd level, intuitives. So obviously, if you're an intuitive, you're also an empath. Okay. So have you ever been able to tell when who is calling you without seeing caller ID, or hearing like those distinctive rings that everybody has programmed into their phones now? I love this tool, because when you practice this, I actually do this myself. I'll try to see who is calling in my head before actually looking at my phone. So I don't even use distinctive ring anymore, because it's almost more fun just to test yourself. Because when you do that and you get it right, you're like, oh, pat on the back, I did that, I called it, but I knew who was calling me before I looked at my phone. Those are fun things to write down in your confidence log too. Or maybe you knew that someone was in trouble before they told you. My family is really well connected, and sometimes all of a sudden my knee will start hurting, and I'll go and talk to my sister, and she's like, man, I banged my knee on a table. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Or vice versa. I've done the same thing where she'll call me and be like, did you hurt your hand? Because ow. Now, granted, those are family connections. Sibling connections tend to be a little bit stronger. Connections with your parents tend to be intuitively stronger, because you were kind of raised with these intuitive instincts, even if you weren't taught them. But all of these are all signs of being intuitive. So, that little secret checkbox that you have on your notes, am I intuitive? If you've experienced any of those things, you can actually check that off now. Intuitives are individuals that are both empathic and intuitive. Like I said, on the little structure of abilities. And you guys are welcome to go back into this at any time and print things off if you want to. You can do a screenshot and just print it. And if you need a copy of it, I'll just post a picture of it later too. Let me make a note for myself here. Post picture of cabinet and structure of abilities, so that you guys can just kind of print that off so that you can have a copy of it. When you are empathic and intuitive, you have a heightened sense of what is happening both around yourself and around other people. Anybody that has these abilities, how many times have you had a child that's come up to you and said, did you do this? Or are you planning to do this? I mean, kids are really good at this, but they're natural. They haven't shut that stuff down yet. So let's move on to the next slide here. So for example, I just felt like my son needed help. Boy, oh boy, have there been times when I have just wanted to call one of my boys, because I'm like, I have this little thing that goes, I literally say, it goes ding, ding, call your kid. So that's when that intuitive drive kicks in, that gut feeling, that instinct. Okay. Or I knew when my sister was going to call me. We kind of covered that because I usually know when my sister's calling me. I felt like I needed to go over to Jane's house, Jane Doe, her house, to give her a hug and listen to her, even though she said she was fine. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with somebody and I'm like, I'm just going to go there, or I'm just going to see if they want to come over, or maybe we need coffee, set up something, because I can tell something's off with this person. Intuitives, dreamers, psychics, and mediums utilize a higher state of consciousness. So I am going to touch on the brainwave thing a little bit. So we generally function like, when we're conscious, we're kind of going through life in, like, they call it beta. So that is not in this course. So you might want to write that down. So we're kind of functioning in beta waves, beta brain waves, right? And as we work in our higher abilities, our sixth senses, a lot of times people are more in the alpha state or the theta state. Okay. So the theta state, the theta level of brainwaves, is the level of light sleep where you can dip into a level of ideas and inspiration. Theta is fabulous. Even our super famous, who doesn't know who Thomas Edison is? Light bulb. He used to use he figured out how to tap into this. He would do this thing where he would go and he would take a nap. Some of you know this, some of you might not. He would take a big heavy ball, and he would put a metal plate below where his arm was, and he would hold this ball while he took a nap. He would lay back and take a nap on a couch, and then as he started to go into that state, he would do this to try to solve problems that he was having with ideas. And as he would kind of concentrate on that as he would go into that nap. And as soon as he started falling asleep, which is when you start reaching that theta brainwave level, his body would relax and the ball would drop onto the plate and it would wake him up just like this. And he did that so that he could remember where if he found a solution. And he claims to have found a lot of his ideas, a lot of his inspiration for his inventions, and a lot of his solutions to trying to figure out how to make something work. He claims that this is where he would do this. He would find these ideas through his naps. Okay, so it's a valuable tool to be able to utilize the theta waves how you can. As one of the reasons, like when people find themselves kind of nodding off at their desks and all of a sudden they're like, ugh, and they'll like snap back into things, all of a sudden you have an idea for something. Theta. Okay. So go ahead and write down if you have any questions on that, because I want to make sure that we are thorough on these topics, because the structure of ability is really important for your foundation. Okay, so now we're going to fourth level, dreamers. Who out there has crazy dreams, crazy vivid dreams? I always ask people, I'm like, do you dream? Do you dream in black and white? Do you dream in color? Do you remember your dreams? And so those of you that are more on the light sleeper, interrupted sleeping side of things probably remember your dreams better. Guides will try to work with you during your dreams. Spirits will try to visit you during your dreams. So activating that and really starting to focus on trying to remember your dreams A lot of people have dream logs. They'll keep it next to their bed so that right when they wake up, they can write down everything they remember. Okay. Do you find that events that happen in your dreams often end up occurring in the lives of either yourself or others you know? So a lot of people are what we call dream psychics or dream intuitives. They will, when they fall asleep, all of a sudden when they wake, you go through all of your, brain waves, alpha, theta, delta, all that fun stuff. When you wake back up, those are the people that are connecting those centers of their brain to their memory so they can wake up and still remember more of it. So when you're in the middle of a dream, some little tips that I don't have written out in this are actively trying to practice influencing your dreams. I learned how to do this when I was a kid. Apparently my guides were super obnoxious and I had no idea. So when I was a kid, I learned to concentrate on something that I wanted to have happen in my dreams. This may have even come from my mother. I kind of vaguely remember my mother saying, think of something happy before you go to bed. Okay. So I would try to focus on something happy before I went to sleep. Like as I was falling asleep, I'm like, what do I want to dream about? I want to dream about ... I would want to dream about maybe I'm at the beach. Okay, that's always a happy one for me. So as I'm falling asleep, I would concentrate on that image. And then I'd wake up the next morning and I didn't have any bad dreams. I felt relaxed. I actually felt like I dreamt about the beach. And sometimes you remember more details, okay? Hang on, a little sip of water time. Okay, so if you want to try to influence your dreams and write some of these things down because it's so important and it's just fun, to be honest. It's really fun to be able to start having a little more influence in your dreams. So influencing your dreams, you can either concentrate on a problem that you are having in life, maybe, and concentrate on just that one question. Don't go into dream time with 500 questions because boy, will that mess with your head. It will mess with your dreams too. You'll have very distorted dreams. But if you can focus on one thing while you're going into that dream time state, a lot of times you'll have an answer. You'll just suddenly know what the answer is. For those of you who don't maybe remember your dreams as much, maybe you just have like a knowing of it when you wake up. Okay. So again, that's why it's always good to have that little notepad, or like some of us, I just text it on my phone in my notes. So that way I don't lose it. Plus it's kind of fun to go back over later. Another tip on for dreamers. Okay. When you're in the middle of a dream. So for those of you who do have the more vivid, active dreams, when you're in the middle of a dream, it's really cool to be able to learn how to control them. So let me check my time really quick, make sure I'm not going to go over. Okay, good. We're still good. So when you're in the middle of a dream, it's really fun to start recognizing that you are there. So when I'm in the middle of a dream, all of a sudden I'll go, wait a second. I'm starting to have kind of a conscious awareness that I'm in this dream. So when you do that, and it takes a little practice, this is definitely more of a practice makes perfect thing, or at least practice makes pretty good. I don't know about perfect, but when you're in the middle of it and you can kind of start looking at your hand and going, ooh, I have a little bit of control in here. Then you can start really having some fun because then you can start influencing the dream. This is a very powerful tool for those of you who have bad dreams. Sometimes if you eat too much before bed, you will have a crazy dream. Chocolate before bed, I can vouch for the fact that that'll do it. But if you find that you have control in your dreams, and like I said, this is a practice thing, then you can start saying, no, I don't want my dream going this direction. And so you can start shifting the process of the dream. You can start moving it into and morphing it into a happier dream. Or you can even take control over it and go, you know what, I don't like this dream and I want to end it. I don't want to morph it. I just want to end it. And you can wake yourself up out of it. Okay. Like I said, I'll have a whole class on this later that's just specifically around dream time and how to control things. But this gives you a couple of fun tips to practice so that you maybe can start taking a little bit more control over that situation. Okay. So dreamers often report dreaming in vivid colors and feel as though they were awake during the process of their dreams. Now, the awake feeling, that's the feeling I was just discussing, but you have to be able to recognize it. You have to be able to know that you are actually having some conscious effect on your dreams, okay? If you're a dreamer, you may find that you can make conscious decisions while in the midst of your dreams. That's, again, what we were kind of just discussing, making those conscious decisions during your dreams. You can also ask to talk to your guides if you're starting to find yourself more conscious during your dreams and be able to make those decisions. And when I say conscious, I don't mean awake. I mean like just functioning throughout the dream. You can also ask your guides to interact with you. You can ask for people that you like, loved ones, to interact with you. I know that happy place meditation, sorry, my hair just keeps going in my face. That happy place meditation that we did, a lot of students have been practicing that and giving me kind of results back on that. Maybe if you have results, maybe you could kind of share those in the Facebook chat group too. But it's interesting because a lot of people are actually using that same happy place meditation to get to that state that we need to be in, that theta state. And then they will ask to talk to their loved ones during that state, which is the same thing you can do while you're in the midst of a dream. You can ask to contact somebody. Maybe you want to talk to a mother that's passed, or a child, or a loved one, or even a pet. When pets pass over, they can actually talk to you because it's that frequency. Okay. That frequency that we're all learning through this class to start interpreting. Okay. A lot of these exercises that I'm giving you to do, sometimes they may feel mundane or they might feel repetitive, but there's a lot more backing the process. So they're so important to do, because what you may not realize is that it's actually helping you connect on a different level than you're even understanding at that point. Okay. So that's why I encourage people practice. It's only going to help you. So like I said, a lot of dreamers report receiving messages, premonitions, and or communication from the other side through their dreams, because when you start becoming more consciously aware and you start really tuning in on those things, that rewiring in the brain is actually going to help you remember your dreams more vividly too. And why not use it? I mean, that's part of the fun of learning all this stuff, right? It's great to go out and help others, but it's really good if you can help yourself too. I mean, the whole point is to start enjoying life, start seeing colors more vividly, start really encompassing what we're here for. While we're living, while we are in this meat suit, I got lectured for that, our body, while we're in this shell of a body, we might as well take advantage of what it has to offer. I mean, if we've got to deal with the pain side of it and the sickness side of it, we might as well enjoy the fun side of it too. So when you're in the midst of learning about your six senses, a lot of this stuff is so much fun to really start picking at things and start feeling things and start enjoying the process. So as you're doing that, start practicing with your dreams, because you may start picking up on those premonitions. Premonitions don't make sense at the time that you get them. 99% of the time, they do not make sense. And I will have more people that tell me, I had the craziest dream. It didn't make any sense. What does this mean? And I'm like, well, write it down, because there's a good chance it just hasn't happened yet. Or maybe you had a premonition for somebody else, and maybe you had a premonition for your husband, and you're like, hey, your job's going to change. And they look at you like you're crazy. And then all of a sudden, a month later, they're like, whoa, I just changed jobs. How'd you know that? You'll hear that a lot when you practice this. So, to cover a little bit more on the brainwave state, and like I said, just touching on it, don't want to get too crazy on the science stuff. Dreamers tend to get their messages while in a brainwave state called delta. So that we're so deep that our body is on autopilot. Okay. Our body breathes, it takes care of itself, it functions, it allows us to go into delta. Okay. Delta is where stronger ideas, messages, healing, and luck comes from. I know that seems silly to throw in luck, but you will understand this. It allows our body to do its best healing too. That's why it's so important to be able to get into that delta state. It allows our energy to flow a little bit more without us interfering consciously. Okay. If you learn how to ask the question before I covered it before I even got to it. If you learn how to ask a question before going to sleep, then you can learn to program yourself to get answers during your delta state. So programming, I may jump in and use this word a few times too, because when we're reprogramming ourselves to, when we're learning, let me back this up. When we're learning about all of our six senses and our abilities, we start reprogramming ourselves. We start saying, I want to recognize this. I want to be able to do this. I want to sense this. So we're sending out the signal to the universe, hey, I'm willing to embrace these things. Okay. All of this stuff is around us anyways. We are just learning how to connect with it. Okay. But recognition is so important. Okay. Here's a prime example. When how many of you have gone to look for, we'll just say a white Toyota. Suddenly I have the urge to buy a white Toyota. Okay. It becomes the number one primary thing that's on the forefront of my mind. So I'm looking for a white Toyota. Next thing I know, I'm like, gosh, there's a lot of people that drive white Toyotas because it's the forefront, and we start recognizing it. We're recognizing it because we want to recognize it. We're seeing these things because we're saying to the universe, I want to see these things. So as we're going through these different skills and different abilities and all these exercises, we're telling ourselves, we want to be able to do this. So I am telling my brain, I want to do this. I'm telling the universe, I want to do this. I'm telling my whole body, I want to feel these things. So when you're doing that, that's when you start recognizing more. So this is the delta state during your sleep, for those of you that are dreamers, and we all are, whether you recognize it or not at this point. Like I said, some of these things will start clicking later. We're all capable of doing this. So again, try this little experiment. Try to pick one thing that you want to focus on before you go to sleep, or one question that you want answered before you go to sleep. And then when you get up the next morning, see what happens. So kind of like we covered, this is also where guides can work with you on a greater level due to your extreme relaxation during this state. So that is such an important statement, this extreme relaxation, okay? The more we can relax, the more that we can get outside of ourselves, okay? The more that we can actually utilize our six senses. We all have them. We all can start connecting with them. We all just have to recognize the six senses we're connecting with, which is why a lot of people say, I have to meditate to be able to get any kind of messages or connect. And I'm like, no, what you really need to do is learn how to relax. So when you're in a session with someone, you can't just be like, hang on a second, I need to meditate for like 30 minutes before we get started. Sometimes you're like one client after the next, or you're like helping a friend and you don't have the ability to be able to say, hang on, I'm going to be right back. I'll be 30 minutes in the bathroom so I can meditate. We can't do that. It's not realistic, especially when you are trying to hone in on your six senses to be able to utilize them on a daily basis throughout the day, not just right when you're working with someone, because we want to grow ourselves. We're ascending, right? So I want you to think about that world's fastest meditation. There's a reason that my guides taught me how to relax really fast, because I'm like that too. I'm kind of a human squirrel. I bounce back and forth, and then I do 500 things. And so sometimes we just have to take a moment to go. And when you realize that world's relaxation, world's fastest meditation helps you relax so much that it's not just an energy clearing. That is, kind of what I teach it for initially, is for the energy clearing aspect, to keep yourself clear when we're working on things. But it helps on the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual sides of things. Helps reoxygenate the blood. So it literally helps us have more clarity, because of it brings more oxygen, brings more clarity to the brain. Proven fact there. Go ahead and look it up. And or what do they say now? Google that. Yeah, I'm out of things. Anyways, so if you train yourself to have more control during your delta state, when you are during dream time, there's a lot of things that you can do. And so because you're in that super relaxed state for your physical body, so we need to learn how to work with our bodies, not against it. So knowing that our physical body is actually a tool that we can use to increase our abilities, to heighten our senses. Use your body like an antenna. That's what it's good for. I mean, aside of other things, I mean, we have some other things that it's really handy to use to get around. Hugs makes it really helpful for hugs. But otherwise, use your body as an antenna and keep it tuned. Okay. That's what that world's fastest meditation can help you do. And doing that before bedtime actually will help you jumpstart the process so that you start relaxing before you even go into that sleep mode. Okay. Helps you relax, helps you really focus on sending out the message that you want to find out. And it can also help you during that state to, I always tell people when you, hence the little swirly clock thing, you can actually learn to bend time and reality. You can morph your reality during your dream time. But unfortunately, that is a much more advanced topic that we will have to cover in another class. But I just want you to think about some of these concepts because you can really start to have a lot of fun with this when you learn how to control it. Okay, in your confidence log, this is where you want to write down your dreams. If you're a dreamer, at least the messages that come through so that you can start tracking them. Dreamers are slightly different from psychics as they tend to receive their messages mostly during their sleeping hours versus during their waking hours. So some of us have more control while we're asleep, or some of us have more control while we're awake. My goal is to get those of you that are currently more at the dreamer state to have more control during waking hours, okay? So one way to know if you're a dreamer is to recognize what is going on while you're in an active dream. Then you can start to take control of your circumstances that are evolving through your dream process. Okay, so I want you to do a little exercise real quick. I want you to, so go ahead and set everything down really quick. Grab a sip of water if you need to. And then go ahead and sit back and relax a little bit. Close your eyes and mentally take yourself back into a dream, a vivid dream that you can remember really well. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment to do that. So go ahead and take yourself into that dream so that you can kind of think of one too. So now that you're kind of floating around in that memory of that dream, okay, I want you to imagine that you can smell and feel the air that is around you in that dream. Even though I realize you're just connecting through a memory, that memory should be able to allow you to kind of see and smell and let your senses start energetically tuning in on that dream. Now I want you to look around in that memory of that dream and try to walk up to an object and touch it. I want you to feel the items in your dream. When you do this, it helps your brain to concrete your ability to move yourself and the items within this dream. So we can practice our dream states when we're awake by just simply connecting to the memory of it. I know, crazy concept, huh? So you'll have a little bit of fun with that too. The more detail that you can take in with your senses while you're in a dream state, the more control you will have over making active decisions within the dream. I know I sound like a broken record with this, but I really want to concrete these concepts into your brain today because this is going to be so important for you to be able to learn how to have control and active participation in this situation. It will also greatly aid you in remembering the dream when you come back into the waking state. Okay, everybody take a deep breath and exhale. That is all I'm going to cram into your brain today. Practice the dream for homework. Practice the dream control scenarios that we discussed. Try to practice those every night. Now remember, focus on one concept. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Okay. So if you don't succeed the first, second, third time, even however long it takes, just keep trying. You will notice that these things will slowly start evolving. Okay. It's an exercising that muscle thing that we talked about. All right. I also want you to document your success in your confidence log when you first wake up in the morning. Okay. You're doing these things for you. Remember, this is all about you. So the sooner that you do this, the more, like first thing in the morning, the more detail you will remember. Okay. And sometimes for some of us, I know this happens to me sometimes, I'll be going through a dream scenario in my head and I'll wake up and I'll only get bits and pieces of it. So I'll document the bits and pieces of it. And then I'll go back later because I remember another aspect of it, or something will pop in, or my guides will be like, here you go, Jen, here's another bits and pieces that you need to patch that puzzle together. Okay. So for our finale, next week on week 5, part 2, level of abilities and structures, we're going to cover 5th and 6th levels of the structure, psychics and mediums. So we're really gonna, you think I taught you some cool stuff today, wait till next week. All right, so I'm going to pop out of screen sharing so that I can go and join you all again.
Several questions already waiting for you, Jen.
Okay, good. Let's see what we, oh my goodness, yes, lots of stuff cooking.
Rose has a few. One of her first ones says, how can you tell if your guides are trying to say something to you in your dreams?
Okay, so I can barely hear you, Vanessa, but I heard that just enough. So how can you tell if your guides are trying to tell you something in your dreams?
Yes.
You can tell because as you're going through that dream process and you start practicing and practicing what I was discussing, you will start to notice that the messages that they're giving you are things that you did not know before. So you'll start to gain new insight on things, new insight on problems. You'll gain new information. So that's why this Dreamtime tool and that exercise that I had you do, even when you're not in Dreamtime, that's why it's so valuable, because sometimes you can go back into that dream and link to your memory, because your memory remembers all of this stuff. So sometimes all we have to do is focus on one little part of the dream that we had. Like, I know I remember talking to someone. And so use your memory to connect to that aspect of the dream and see if it evolves. So remember how I told you our psychic abilities are like snuggled right up with our creative side, our imagination. They do this. They're just like, hey, bosom buddy. Okay. That's why it feels so weird to us to connect to those centers, because sometimes you feel like, whoa, I'm crazy, I'm imagining this. And so, but utilizing that and saying, okay, well, maybe my psychic abilities and my imagination are working together so that I can reform this dream and actually figure out what I was trying to figure out in the dream. So, and then remember how we talked about having faith in ourselves? Really need to learn to have that faith in yourself. That's why that is such an important part of the foundation of going into learning your abilities, is literally having faith in yourself, trusting yourself, and getting past, all of those doubts. And every class I'll be building on that. Every class I will be teaching you things that will help you get further and further past those doubts and past those roadblocks that we kind of put up for ourselves. Okay. So practice just utilizing the memory center to try to reconnect to your dream and see if that helps you reconnect with your guides. Okay.
Okay. And then our next question was, what do animals mean in your dreams? Like just a raven, dolphin, sharks, etc.
Animals can either be symbols, or sometimes they can be guides. Some people are more like, they follow more of the shamanic side of things. Different things can represent different things for different people based on, either our upbringing or our life experience or our religious perspective. Okay. So a lot of times we want to be able to see what that connects to for us. What does your heart say? Okay. And then I can only take a couple more questions. So let's see what we got here. Okay, Rebecca, every night, super detailed, color multiple. Okay. Let's see. Trying to search through this to see the questions. Vanessa, is there another question on here?
Yes. Rebecca was asking, can we prep with the right and left eye exercise before we connect and the world's fastest meditation?
Okay, so with the left, right eye movement exercise that we have practiced, that helps with kind of like we were covering, going back and forth like this, it helps you connect by doing that left, right eye movement first, and then trying to see, and remember the part where you kind of trying to see into your eyelids. By doing world's fastest meditation first, that helps relax the body, helps relax the mind, helps brings you clarity, right? Doing the left, right eye movement exercise second, because that way you're already in a better state. Then the eye movement exercise helps you to take that state and advance it by, telling your midbrain, hey, we need to get to work, and then pushing forward through starting to see things through your eye, like in the distance in your eyelids. That really helps. Again, it's an exercise. We're working on those muscles for our midbrain to be able to go, we're trying to formulate something here. So I'm connecting my psychic abilities, working with my midbrain, and working that imagination to kind of all work together. Okay. So it does help you prep if you do that before bed. All of those things can help you with the dream state too. So did that answer the question?
Oh, that's great, because I've been obsessing over the left, right, but and also the world's fastest. But I like the idea of doing the meditation first and then going into the left, right brain. It has been so awesome. I'm like, these two tools are like, they're just magic. Just right into that state. So cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and it's so funny because as we go through the class, you'll start to realize that once we get into the deeper stuff, which we're starting to just touch on, once we get into the deeper stuff, all of a sudden they're left, right eye movement exercise and world's fastest meditation. That's why I tell people practice so much, because it'll start becoming your ABCs as you're formulating the words in the paragraphs. Does that make sense? So it becomes second nature, because you're like, of course I have to do that. Otherwise, how would I get to this point? Right. So yeah. And that's like the same thing with a lot of these exercises. It's like you want to use those and practice them so that when we get to the more advanced stuff, that becomes the easy stuff. That's foundational, right? And so, and then it's like you kind of go, how did I function with this? How did I not know this stuff? That's my goal by the end of this class for you guys to go, how did nobody teach this to me when I was in school? So all right, one more question.
I just wanted to say I'm already feeling that way. So thank you.
You?
Yes,
Oh.
because I'm already thinking to myself, it's because it's one of those things where, you've done, for me, I usually just like pull information in a couple times a year where it's like, well, more than that, but
Yeah.
this right now is like putting me into the mindset. It's like, I feel like I'm doing all of the steps to properly learn how to ride a bike or something.
Yeah.
And instead of just flanging through it, and all of a sudden information comes and you're spinning in circles. But this is like, feels like, I don't know, it just feels so solid, and like these tools are just so good to feel like you're in your body.
Yes. It's like you want to be able to access, you want everything to work together.
Yeah.
And so, after doing this for so many years, I mean, I've been doing readings for over 25 years. I mean, I've been working with people for so long and teaching for several years, many years at this point. And after watching what has worked with people and developing these little tips and tricks, even for myself, my guides teach me a ton. I really listen to them. And so by being able to utilize just simple things, it doesn't have to be as complex as what people make it out to be, because we already have it. We're just learning how to recognize it and use it, So yes, I hope that this continues to help grow those wonderful things for you. Okay, so it is 1:15. Let's see, do I have any other questions I can answer really quick? Dream or dream for two. Why is it that we can remember dreams, dream or two from when we were kids and remember them our whole lives? Oh, yes, that's actually a really good question. We can do that because those were very impactful dreams. So they really cemented themselves into our psyche. A lot of times we go through experiences, it's kind of like having a traumatic experience you don't tend to forget it unless you had a head injury, right? So we remember these things because something needs to make an impact on us. I have a dream that I remember from when I was 5. And part of the reason for it is because apparently my guides were training me how to know that I was safe, that I didn't have to fight. I think I talked to you guys about this way in the beginning. So we will remember those kind of dreams because we need, and if you didn't understand it then, now is actually a fantastic time to do the exercise I just taught you, reconnect with that memory of that dream and go back in there and say, hey guides, what did this mean? We don't have, so not to go onto a tangent, time is not as linear as everybody thinks it is. We don't have to jump back in time. Time's more like this kind of. I actually had guides show me this the other night. Like they were literally going, time is more like a spiral where it's all squished together. So we have access to any of those points in our life at any time. So we don't have to think about it as going way back in time when I was 5. We can go, oh, I can just pluck this from right here. Okay. But like I said, time's a different topic and we can't cover that today. So let's see here. Mickey Mouse exercise. How do you know if you hear it isn't? I'm gonna recall. So a lot of times when we hear things, it actually is exactly what it is. It's something that's triggering our memory. When I am asking you to actively take part in something by pasting an image of Mickey Mouse on a wall and having him talk to you, your brain has to force that out. And so that is where, yes, we could rationalize it as our imagination. Yes, we can rationalize it as a memory. However, if you're actively doing that and you're projecting it out of your head, it doesn't matter which way it's flipping, you're still utilizing and exercising the same muscles that you need to be able to connect with the other side. Okay. So some of these things, practice, and don't stress about the dynamics behind it because we will get to that. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of questions. Okay. So what are your thoughts about recurring dreams? So a lot of times when we have recurring dreams, it's because we haven't solved it. We haven't completed it. We haven't obtained the actual information that we needed from it. Okay, so sometimes, have you ever noticed when you have a reoccurring dream that little details sometimes change? Or that sometimes you'll have a new experience in the dream, or the dream will change directions. So reoccurring dreams, a lot of times that's why we have it, because either we didn't get through it the right way, or maybe we took away the wrong message, or sometimes maybe we just need to have a different experience within that dream, and maybe it's a comfort zone. I mean, there's a million different reasons why we can have a reoccurring dream, but those are usually the main ones. It's because we haven't taken away the message that we're trying to get out of it, or we didn't write it down, and our guides are very persistent and they're just like, listen to me. So anyways, okay, well, on that note, I am going to say goodbye because I have talked way too long today. But it was absolutely enjoyable. You guys had great questions. And if you think of anything else, feel free to join in on the Facebook group. And if you have any knowledge on something behind that too, share each other's experiences. You know, if you have a crazy dream, post it, see what everybody else thinks. Maybe you can get some interpretation from everybody else intuitively tuning in on that. Okay. So
will you be answering any of these questions? Like typing for people who are watching this after the fact?
So like I said, I'll go back there, I'll scroll back through, but usually once I close out, it closes out the chat. So if I missed your question, go ahead and post it in the Facebook group. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. What a wonderful class. So happy to see everybody again. Don't forget to practice. And then I will see you all next week. Have a good night.
Bye. Have a good
Bye,
weekend.
guys. You too.